This week, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, paid a visit to the maximum security prison in El Salvador, where we sent more than 220 suspected Venezuelan gang members after they were rounded up and deported without due process. And she had this picture taken as a photo op, and that picture reminded me of another picture and other pictures I've seen many times that look something like this. Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to another video in which I'm talking about politics, because this week several things have happened which have just absolutely chilled me to the bone in terms of what our government and what the Trump administration is doing. First of all, we do have that mass roundup, deportation of more than 200 Venezuelan men, apparently a few women, who are rounded up and flown to maximum security prison, which has a terrible reputation for human rights abuses and deaths and slave labor. So I'm just going to call it a concentration camp from now on, where they are being imprisoned. These men and women were denied due process, and as a result, we know that at least 2 or 3 of the men who were sent there are not in fact Venezuelan gang members. They were in the country legally, awaiting for processing of their immigration status or their immigration paperwork or a hearing, and yet they were deported essentially to a concentration camp outside the United States of America, where their chances of getting out and being returned to the United States or being returned to their families or anywhere else are really slim. And then in addition to that, we saw video of ICE agents arresting a young woman, I believe, on the streets of Boston for the crime of writing an op-ed in which she was critical of Israel and the United States policy in Israel. This young woman was a student here on a student visa when she wrote this, and therefore her visa has been revoked by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and she was arrested and initially sent to a detention camp in Louisiana, and right now her case is still being pushed forward, and a writ of habeas corpus has been issued so she could be presented and get due process. These arrests without due process, these arrests of people based on just evidence that the police or law enforcement like ICE gathers and doesn't present to a judge or to the public, are an example of actual fascism, or if you prefer the term authoritarianism. It doesn't make any difference to me, and it's important that you and I speak out against this. Now is the time to speak. Now is the time to let elected officials know that this is not acceptable. Now is the time to be ready for worse to come. Because the simple truth of the matter is, if this can be done to these people, there are no people in the United States of America who are safe. This may seem like hyperbole. This may seem extreme, and you may think to yourself, well, you know, violent Venezuelan gang members who are here in the United States illegally, whether they're admitted legally by Biden or waiting processing or not, those people don't deserve due process. There's something really important about due process that I think gets overlooked, something that is an essential core value of the United States of America, and that is that due process is really the practical end of innocent until you're proven guilty. Due process means at the very least, before you're arrested, a judge has to say, yes, there's enough evidence you committed a crime for you to be arrested. It has to at least involve some kind of a courtroom procedure, maybe just an arraignment, where people are brought forward and evidence is presented against them, and they have an opportunity to counter that evidence. Because if that doesn't take place, we no longer are a country in which innocent until proven guilty matters. The police, government forces can just arrest anybody they want and do anything they want with them without due process. Now you may be thinking, well, as an American citizen, this can never happen to me because I'm an American citizen. Without due process, when are you going to even have the ability to prove that you're an American citizen? What prevents ICE from deciding that you are, I don't know, an Irish mob member or something like that, and you're a danger to this country, and therefore they're going to arrest you without getting a warrant from a judge, and they're going to send you to a detention camp in Louisiana without ever presenting you to a judge or presenting any evidence of your guilt, and then they're going to deport you to a concentration camp in El Salvador. If you don't have due process, what prevents that from taking place? So we have to take these cases seriously. We have to uphold the principle of the Constitution. We have to say, no, These people deserve due process so that we don't send the innocent away, so that we don't imprison the innocent in a concentration camp in El Salvador, so that we stand up for the rule of law and the presumption of innocence, because that protects all of us. That protects all of us. It's not about whether or not people who are here illegally have the right to due process. By protecting due process for them, we're protecting due process for all of us. And we have to ask ourselves, and you should be asking yourself right now, why is the Trump administration so hell-bent on arresting, deporting these people without due process? What do they gain from not having due process? One of the things they gain is secrecy. Another thing they gain is the ability to spread terror. And what we lose is that presumption of innocence. If the Trump administration is fighting against due process for people they claim are here illegally and are committing crimes or are violent criminals under whatever act they want to, okay, if they can get away with that, if the courts allow that to take place, none of us are safe. All of us can just be arrested, can be pronounced, gang members or dangerous people by the United States government and imprisoned, deported, or whatever, because without due process, we don't have a chance to fight for our rights, to establish who we are, and we can just simply be disappeared. Why is that what the Trump administration wants? Why is that something any of us would allow the Trump administration to do? So when you hear these stories about students speaking out against Israel, you may think, well, I disagree with them. You shouldn't come here and speak out against American policy if you're a student. When you hear about these alleged gang members being rounded up and sent to this concentration camp in El Salvador, and you think to yourself, well, they don't deserve due process, they're not American citizens, you're next. If the Trump administration can do it to them, it can do it to you. Now is the time to speak out. Look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.